So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar event for International Women's Day. And we're delighted to have you join us this afternoon. So my name is Ellen Moran, and I'm the Research Manager at Fighting Blindness. And we're an Irish patient-led charity with a mission to cure blindness, to support people living with sight loss, and to empower patients. And we're hosting today's webinar to celebrate International Women's Day. And the theme of this year is Break the Bias. So aligned with our strategic goals, Fighting Blindness wish to support and nurture and promote the next generation of female researchers. And we got the idea for today's webinar from a 2020 Irish Times article that details how academic research is impacted by gender bias, and also how COVID-19 has impacted female researchers' careers through the disruption of childcare and increased domestic responsibilities. So today we are going to discuss the challenges that female researchers face as a result of gender bias and how to overcome these challenges while developing your career. And we thought this would be a positive way to celebrate International Women's Day, especially as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. And some of you may be looking to refocus your career plans. So we're very excited to welcome two experts today. Our first speaker is Dr. Analisa Montesanti, who is a Programme Manager at the Health Research Board, which he joined in 2005 and has since then been involved in managing several funding schemes. Since 2016, Annalisa has been leading the portfolio of the research careers in health research after developing a framework aimed at delivering a coordinated response approach to building capacity and capability in health research in Ireland. She's also leading the integration of persistent identifiers such as ORCID in grant management, and is also involved in developing some grant management policies. Annalisa is deeply involved in promoting open science, open fair data, and the DORA principles, and more recently, the implementation of narrative-based CVs for researchers. And Annalisa is going to give us an overview from a research funder's perspective on the challenges that female researchers face because of gender bias, and what funders such as the HRB are doing to overcome this. Then our second speaker is Tara Hughes, who is the Research Careers Manager in UCD, and who's working with postdoctoral researchers. Tara's background is in HR, learning and development, and organizational development. And prior to joining the UCD Careers Network, she was in UCD HR, where her key programs were in faculty development and mentoring. Prior to UCD, Tara worked in human resource roles in global technology organizations in both Dublin and London. And Tara's going to speak about developing your career and how to overcome gender bias challenges. Then after both talks, we're going to announce the Young Female Researcher Bursary winner. And the bursary is a €1,000 career award for an early stage female researcher working in vision research in Ireland. And this award is very generously sponsored by our corporate partner, It's for Women. And we're looking forward to announcing later who they have chosen as the winner. So just before we kick off, a bit of housekeeping. As this is a Zoom webinar, everyone's camera and microphone will remain off throughout. And if you have a question for our speakers, which I hope you will have, please submit it via the Q&A box or the chat box. And also just please note today's event is being recorded, and we'll share it afterwards on our website and social media. So without further ado, if I could welcome Annalisa, and good afternoon, Annalisa, if you'd like to kick off, please.
Thanks so much, Ellen. Thanks for inviting me and for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, so thanks very much for being invited to present today. So just an introduction about myself. I come from Palermo in Sicily, which is the island in the south of Italy, where I got my degree in Bachelor of Science, and then I worked for several years as a staff scientist, both in Palermo and Milan, which is in the north, and Lombardy. I moved then to Oxford, where I had, with a postdoctoral fellowship, I did my PhD, because I didn't have a chance to do a PhD in Italy, at the Institute of Molecular Medicine in Oxford. And then I moved to Dublin in 2001, where I started a postdoctoral position at the Conway Institute in UCD until 2014. And then I had the opportunity to replace somebody in career break at the HRB as a project officer. That was a big shift in my career from being in a lab for about 13 years to pipetting and do what many people know they do as a scientist, to being in an office. And then from there in 2007, I had the opportunity internally, well, it was an external, of course, position, but to be promoted to program manager, where I've been like dinosaurs since 2007, and I'm still there. In the meantime, I had also 4 career breaks for maternity leave during my career. As I said, I've been working in HRB since 2005, and then so just to introduce, is a state agency under the Department of Health, with an annual budget of about 50 million, 100 staff now, and about active 230,000 euro of active awards. We have 3 different functions. One is is intramural research. So we work very closely with the Department of Health, and they provide evidence for policy and information for service planning. And then I work in the strategy and funding Directorate, where we basically support research, and we enable research with some activity, for example, PPI, and then we support infrastructure as well. We have also another unit, which is the Health Research Consent Declaration Committees, and then we have also a national office for the Research Ethics Committee, as well as part of the HRB. So these 2 function are more about the regulatory framework, the support research. So when I was invited to give this talk, and I accepted, yes, I had to prepare the presentation, and I wasn't sure exactly how to start. So instead of going with what is impeding the people to do research, or women in particular, of course, for today, I was going to what are the enablers, and just going back to my career, and also as a person who work, not a researcher anymore, but still in the research environment, supporting research. And so I thought about flexibility. So these are things that I think are some of the enabler to attract people in research, but very importantly, to keep people in research, and to have women in research that can actually be promoted to higher position, which I think is probably one of the bottleneck we have for women. So I think it's flexibility. So for example, give opportunity people to come back from career breaks, to have part-time roles, and so on. There is, I think it's very important to have good role models and mentorship, to have good metrics to assess researcher. In funding, it could be, of course, in the institution when they need to be employed, and during promotions opportunity. Continued access to training opportunities for professional development, for example, is very important. In many universities and many research institutions now, they provide leadership courses, provide equality, fairness, and openness in process and procedures. And then very, very important, which is the one that probably takes more time to change, is to have a positive culture and a supporting environment. So I'm going to focus on what this HRB is doing, and probably a bit more on what we have been doing in the team I manage, which is very much focused on supporting research careers in health research. So first of all, as a general statement, so we have a gender policy, and then we also have, so we pay quite a lot of attention in the gender balance in decision making, and this is usually under the underrepresented sex. So in some cases, not actually women, but it could be men in specific disciplines. And gender is heavily considered when we invite people, for example, as panel members and as chairs. And also we pay consideration as well within the peer review process. So what we ask people as well to review, for example, recognition that the impact of career breaks can have on individuals. And also when people change career path, that as usually, or change sometimes sector, that can have a huge influence, of course, huge impact. And then gender balance in research teams. So we are part as well of international groups, is not me personally, but another colleague of mine, that is leading gender policies in HRB. So we're not working on this in a silo, we're working in at national level, international level to improve the gender bias or the gender policy and implementation of it. So in terms of the research career framework, that was developed in 2016 and then review again 2019. So we have developed 4 career stage where we want to support individuals, which is the doctoral research training, postdoctoral research, transition to independence, and transition to leadership. And we have 2 academic paths because we, in recognition of the diversity and flexibility we have to give to people. So we support academic researcher and health and care practitioner, and the needs of these 2 groups are quite different. Why am I saying that? Because when I developed this, we developed this research career framework, we developed as well some core principles. And these core principles are the ones that are guiding us still now in the current strategy to basically support research across the different career paths. One is actionable knowledge, but what I would like to focus more is a bit more about the diversity, which it's a very generic term, so it's not really what we intend with EDI, but we want to attract, support talented people from a wide range of discipline and profession. And that basically means that we need flexible mechanisms and approach because not one fits all. And then we pay quite a lot of attention on mentorship. This has been revised from what it was called before professional development and skills. So we strongly value the role of mentors in training and development. That's, I think, is very important for women to have. That's going back to the role model and the mentorship. And then we focus quite a lot on the research, kind of the responsible research metrics. So is a researcher assessment impact, and that's linked to the DORA principle. I don't know if people are familiar, but it's really to move away from the typical list of publication of funding, but looking at the researcher career track, the researcher curriculum, and the research they have conducted in a more holistic way. So this is just a snapshot of what we've been doing between 2016 and 2020. So it's a 5 years of the previous strategy, and this is the people we have attracted and funded. And as you can know, women are actually doing quite well. Of course, in the later stage, which is the research leader, we just have 5. So it's a very low number to just really look at the gender, but it's still there. So we know that one of the bottlenecks is that people, women very often don't get professorship or head of the department or this type of position, more high rank position. And actually today I was just reading a snapshot of EUA, so the European Union, European Association of University, in which the report is quite positive in terms of the women now filling higher rank positions. Still more work to be done, but it's definitely improving many EU countries. So we are looking at how we support researcher. We are looking how we can improve the women in conducting research and being attractive. So one of the things that is part of this responsive research assessment, I started in 2016, linked to specific documents that were published, but now we're part of HRB, like other funders in Ireland as well. We're part of 2 international groups that are really working in improving how, for example, the CV can help people, not just women, but people to really present the work and their experience in a more holistic approach, and the reviewers, of course, to review appropriately. And one thing, for example, we do in many schemes in HRB is having a specific question about career breaks. And that's really because we know we have many funding agencies move away from the academic age, or apart in specific schemes where there is a reason why, in which there is a specific time after the PhD in terms of eligibility when they can apply. But we're looking more at the active research experience, because we know, like me, for example, I had 4 career break that would have impacted partially at the time when I was a scientist, my career. So that's something that is definitely something we do, and sitting up panel members when we manage the panel meetings and so on. These are taken in consideration by by reviewers. We ask in the CV as well the contribution to knowledge, the contribution to training development of the researcher, because we know that, for example, many people do that, and it's very, very often hidden part of the role, but it takes time to do this. And then contribution also to wider research community, society, and we know that in many in many funding agency now we are we're focusing and emphasize more that is not just the publication of research in typical peer-reviewed publication, but also what is the impact and the contribution in society as well. And the wider research community is people that are probably sitting in panels in national groups. They contribute to open science, they are editors of some journals. So these are all things that people do. So it's really looking at more holistically how reviewers can be, review can review applications and the track record of individuals, and also to pay attention to emphasizes the impact of the research more than where the research is published. And then we also ask a personal declaration. So that's really a snapshot for me in terms of what I think are the enabler. And I'm sure that Tara will probably give a bit of more details of what are the difficulties that researchers face at some point of their careers. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks for that, Annalisa. So just if anyone wants to pop in with some questions, if you can send them through on the Q&A, or make one of my colleagues aware, and we'll turn your mic and your video on. Just Annalisa, I had a couple of questions. Just thanks again for a fantastic talk. Do you think COVID-19 has maybe exacerbated gender bias a bit in research? Like, what was your experience as of working in HRB?
As in terms of us women working in HRB,
or no, it was maybe kind of saying kind of like funding and number of applications.
Yeah, so I was looking, yes, and I was asking some colleagues. So from the reports, so we have usually on the reports from all the funded activities. So there was nothing really reported to us. So we noticed that everybody's been impacted, but there was no specific reports highlighting that, yeah, I'm a woman and I've been impacted more. But we know from the other seminars, we know that very often when you have young kids or this type of responsibility, most of the time is probably a generic term, it falls a bit more on women. So I'm pretty sure that this has impacted. So from the HRB perspective, like many other funders, we have provided very much flexibility in cost extension, changing in terms of some of their sometimes work packages and so on. We know that sometimes research could not be conducted as it was. There was the HEA, of course, funded grant, so cost extension. So many PhD or postdoc have been supported, so they had extension. Yes, I in terms of the bias, is not probably just necessarily the environment, it's probably the system where we work. Yeah. I think probably providing flexibility even going forward with funders or institutions when we review individuals. And then when we ask them in terms of their career breaks or any type of breaks, people, I think sometimes researchers are probably reluctant to give that type of honest answer. I don't know why. And some people instead are very honest. So probably because if we ask a question, there is a specific reason. So probably trying to be honest, because then people can actually review if these people, so if the publication or the research output of a specific award, or you're being out of contract for a specific reason because it's more difficult after the COVID, it just, yeah, add it and probably have the opportunity, maybe with this type of CV that are more, have more the opportunity because it's more narrative based to explain where you come from, probably be honest and then explain. So, but definitely I think has an impact more on women and men.
Yeah, but now the move to narrative CVs does sound very positive, and that is something probably it's a worldwide move that agencies are going to take advantage of. And so that is, in comparison to previous, historically, CV doesn't have to be as rigid. And imagine as well, not just for career breaks, but maybe someone spend some time outside of academia and industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's just to pay attention that it's those type of experience are really valuable. So it doesn't mean, yes, you probably, this individual didn't have research output, but then the experience they bring from having changed discipline as definitely as a value. So it's just that way is give the opportunity to individual to really explain what the skill set and what the experience they have is. So there is a big conference, well, like workshop next Monday. So if you want, I can about the CV and the use of the CV. So I can send you the links and maybe other people might be interested. And actually, so it's in 2 weeks time, the 21st. But yes, so and then we are working as well in different groups, and we're trying to make sure that the use of CV doesn't impact the EDI policy and so on. So we are really paying attention how the CV can be incorporated in many funders. It will be in the institution as well, but then it will be incorporated and applied effectively. And actually is not going to have a worse outcome than we have now at the moment.
Okay. And just there's another question coming through is maybe, what, you know, if you could go back to when you started out in research, what advice would you give to kind of say your younger self? Is there any learnings you would share from your career that you'd like to pass on?
When I was a scientist or when I changed?
Maybe both. Maybe kind of is there something kind of maybe sometimes it's kind of just certain things, maybe now with the CVs, that kind of, people have very fixed ideas of what's very important in your career, and you have to do a postdoc abroad or those kind of things.
So I think my problem is I changed topic too often, and then I never specialize in everything, in anything in particular. So that then didn't pay off. I had great experience, I think, at human level to go, and language and culture. So I changed in Italy, then I went to England. And so I had a very good experience. I'm very flexible. So that brings a lot of things, soft skills, sometimes we don't look at. But in terms of the career, I didn't publish a lot, which then, of course, brought me to, at some point with also young kids, to make a decision. And then I think when I changed, I think I didn't realize how many skills I had. I've been pipetting for 13 years. I've been doing similar stuff in different labs, in different work environment, but I actually wasn't aware. And at the time when I did my PhD or postdoc, there was no training of any sort. I never did a statistical track. So now I think it's much more structured, and people are probably more aware of the soft skill they learn actually when they so during the PhD or the postdoc, and they're very useful in many other sectors. It's just probably a self-reflection awareness. I didn't have that. So I had the opportunity to change. It was great. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back. And some people that come through the internship, for example, the internship program to the HRB, few people, not many, go back to academia. They realize, actually, I want to go back. This is what I want to do. But still, if you leave academia, even for a while, because you're not sure, that experience will be useful for going back even to academia, or will be a springboard for something else.
So you would say kind of regular reflection on kind of where you're going.
I think so.
And what, look at what you have on your CV, and kind of on what you enjoy as well too.
Absolutely. And then now, like Tara will talk, but it's like there are very good groups in different research institutions that really offer lots of opportunity, guidance, workshop, and so on. So just take avail of that opportunity if you're not sure where you want to go. And there is a period at some point that everybody has to have self-reflection to say, what are my opportunities staying in academia? We know that not everybody will succeed.
Okay.
And it's not a failure. Just one thing I would like to, so I think one thing I thought at the time I was failing, because my dream was to become a scientist, and I was, but then I realized actually I don't want to become a lecturer either. And the system in Ireland is that you become a lecturer. There is no such things like a research institution where you can just conduct research, or there are not pharma per se. So I think many people think that they battle for a while about things, changing career is a failure, and it is not. It's a change.
Because historically, I mean, if you undertook a PhD, it was kind of almost like, it was an apprenticeship model to eventually run your own laboratory. Whereas nowadays, often, and I think even a lot of PIs who take on PhD students, they'd be very much happy to take on someone to do a PhD, knowing they don't intend to stay in academia. They are looking to move into industry or another career.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great training, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay there forever.
Great. That's great. Well, thanks so much, Annalisa. And if we have no other questions, then I can invite Tara to give a presentation, please.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Tara. We can hear you perfect.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
I'll just. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. Happy International Women's Day. Let me just share my screen so we can check that that's all working properly before I start talking. Can you see that?
Perfectly.
Thanks a million. Okay. Great, delighted to be here. My name is Tara Hughes, and I am currently the UCD, what's known as UCD Research Careers Manager. Basically, my cohort, as Ellen said, is postdocs who are specifically on the research, what we call the Research Careers Framework in UCD. Just tell you a little bit about myself. I think 25 years ago, I finished a master's in UCD Smurfit in an MBS in Human Resource Management. I then did probably 12 or 13 years in HR in Vodafone in Dublin, and I moved to London and I worked for AOL in London. At that point, when I reflect back on my career, I definitely leaned out, shall we say. I had an opportunity to go for HR director role, which I backed away from. I had 2.5 children, and I was planning to move back to Dublin with my husband. So yeah, I do wonder, was that the right decision? But that's what happens in life. We're faced with lots of different decisions and lots of different paths, and hopefully we'll all be around for a long time and have the opportunity to experience different, career journeys and stories. My story continued then in that I did move back to Dublin with 3 children, and I stayed at home for about 5 years fully. I then dabbled in some kind of lecturing and dissertation supervision and sort of very casual work. And then I went into UCD in 2018 into the HR function, and I worked in learning development. And I mainly worked on faculty development, so I worked with assistant professors and I did some work around mentorship, which I can talk more about if people want to ask me about that in the Q&A, and developed a program around supporting faculty who were looking for promotion. And then I did some of my own reflecting and realized that what I really enjoy in work is interaction and working with people. And the HR role I was doing was very like email-y is how I describe it. So I was just really at my desk, I suppose, a lot. So I moved to careers office to have a bit more variety, I suppose, in terms of what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. So yes, I do spend a lot of time sending emails, but I also spend a lot of time meeting people, delivering workshops and one-to-ones, etc. And again, happy to talk more about that if you like. Okay, I can keep going. So just in preparation for today, there's so much about, I guess, all the different issues, and I'm, speaking from a place of privilege. We're all well aware of all the terrible things that are happening in the world at the moment, to not just to women. We're also aware of some of the biases that exist within the system, let's call it, for want of a better word. And I think it was Oprah Winfrey who said, there is no big secret in life. The secret is just to have a goal and work hard. And I don't have a big secret to reveal to you either in terms of how to break the bias. I can only talk from what I see in my job and how I support postdoc researchers at the moment in UCD. if you are in a position of leadership, let's say, or maybe you're working in some kind of startup, or you've got your own business, or you have some what would you say, influence, I suppose, over policy at an organizational level, then this, I think, is quite nice in that it summarizes a lot of what I read in terms of recommendations for next steps in improving the EDI space. And obviously in UCD, we have very strong EDI program, which is improving year on year. And I think they're just publishing their report today. In fact, I haven't read it yet. But these, like I said, this just for me reflects some of the things that I see it recommended quite frequently. And I guess what I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I just wanted to, I thought it was nice to put a slide in around it in case anyone does have influence. But in terms of as individuals and planning our careers, you know, this is what I think the top half is what we think of everybody else's plan and career journey, that everybody else just, you know, even goes in an upwardly direction. It's all smooth sailing, there's no problems, it's all great. But everybody's reality, I mean, everybody's reality is more like the bottom half. And like I said, you'll have hopefully long and fruitful careers, and you'll have different challenges at different stages. And you might have experience like me of leaning in and leaning out, and that's okay. This is just to show some research from BT, which is a UK organization. I don't know, maybe I can zoom in there. Where I suppose, you know, if we know, I think it's a fact that early research careers are precarious. The postdocs that I work with are on 1, 2, 3 year contracts. There's postdoc 1 and postdoc 2. And I know that it's a source of anxiety. It's not, but it's what I say in the orientation when I meet these postdocs is that, you know, we know that this is not going to be their career. We know they are only here for a short time. And we know that even at assistant professor level and beyond, there are lots of short-term contracts. Open-ended contract in this context means permanent, so it's just the opposite of fixed term. And then they just summarize different disciplinaries, and you can look. I think we're sharing these slides afterwards, so I can send them around. I have some more of the VJ stuff coming up later, which I won't spend too long on. But again, if it's interesting, you can look at my slides later. Okay, so we know about a little bit more. We know about the environment we're working in. We know that there's often fixed-term careers. We know that really if you want to stay on faculty, the route is assistant professor, which is obviously teaching and research and what's called leadership and contribution. So there's all, you know, those 3 big elements. I like this quote. This is from one of our postdocs a couple of years ago, but really sums up for me what I hear a lot from one-to-ones, in that there is a lot going on. And I know this probably applies to PhDs and other research professionals as much as it does to postdocs. I know working with the assistant professors, they find exactly the same. There's just a lot. There's a lot of, it's hard to prioritize. Especially when you have a fixed term contract, I suppose you feel that extra pressure. I too, by the way, I'm on a fixed term contract. So can you plan your career? This is a question. I suppose it's important for you to think about this first. Do you believe you can plan your career? The research suggests that you can, and that there is benefit in doing so, although obviously not all the elements are in your control. So this is the first place for you to start, I suppose, to really think about, do you believe that you can plan your career? I believe you can plan your career, and that planning your career will only be of benefit to you. This is some fairly old research, but it's from Arts and Humanities, but it just shows that a higher percentage of people on permanent contracts in higher education had sought advice earlier on, basically, and that some people, there were also evidence, there was people who started the research career journey without ever really, I suppose, finding out what was involved in it at the early stage. And I do see that as well. I see people who have just kept going, I suppose, down a path without, in my opinion, maybe ever really taking a step back or putting their head up and looking around as to, you know, what they're doing and why. But that's easy to say when you're, you know, 25 years post-college, but that's what I see. This now are two frameworks. So given where I'm saying you can plan your career, this is a framework we use in UCD Careers Office. It's called Career Edge. There's loads and loads of different career development frameworks. I just thought I'd show you two. This one, because we use it in UCD, you can see the bottom there. It's for your experience. So the Edge, the E is for experience, D, degree, G, generic skills, or transferable skills, we call them, and E is emotional intelligence. And it all pulls up then into this piece around reflection and evaluation, which Annalisa has already mentioned, and how that then builds into employability. This is a very basic one, but I like it because it's basic and it's easy to remember. It's from the 1970s. But we start there with knowing yourself. And you can go through this, you know, quite systematically, I think, and just use it as a 4-step guide. Know yourself, then look at what the opportunities are, then decide what to do, and then take action. Okay, so what I say to the postdocs is, and by the way, that is a link, that is not a link in fact, but you can, it's a Research Careers UCD website, which you can look at. That's 25 of our postdocs and their career stories outside academia. I suppose the first thing is to decide, are you going to have a plan? Are you going to have a strategy? And spend time thinking on it. Yes, you're going to have to work hard, but be a little bit smart about also taking that time out to think about your career and your direction. It doesn't take a long time, but you should take time. I say this a lot as well to people, you know yourself best of all, okay? So, you know, don't wait for the tap on the shoulder. Don't wait for someone to give you advice on what to do. You are unique. You are educated. You have lots of experience and lots of skills. You have your own story and your own pathway. And I suppose own that, I would say. Absolutely, you know, look for advice, support, mentorship, etc., etc., etc. You know, figure out where your gaps are, figure out how you're going to fill those gaps if that's required. But I suppose own your own journey, if you like. Career development, we often start in this place of self-reflection. What are my values? What do I want? What do I enjoy? What am I good at? How do I want my future career to look like? Do I want to be at home? Do I want to be in office? Do I want to be living in, you know, what country do I want to be living in? Do I want to be in the city? Do I want to be driving a car, cycling a bike? Who am I living with? How am I working? How long am I working? What hours am I working? You know, why am I working? How do I feel rewarded and recognized, etc., etc.? Do I value risk over security, etc.? So try and figure out what your values are, what's important to you, and what you enjoy in work, and then articulate those into goals. And some people struggle with the long-term goals, but I would encourage you to then think about short-term goals. What can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week? What can I do in 3 weeks? Start there. Then I suppose have a look around you, figure out what, you know, who inspires you, find out more about those jobs, start a little spreadsheet maybe. You can just list organizations, list their website, look at jobs, use LinkedIn, use, you know, sessions like this, use societies, committees. There's loads of information. You can get, in fact, overwhelmed with information. So that's why if you have a plan, then you can fill in the gaps and then decide what you're going to do about it. This is just, this is just an example of a values exercise that you can do. This is an example of a kind of short, medium, and long-term worksheet that you can fill in, not only thinking about your work, but also thinking about your life. The kind of easiest way to do it is see where you're at now. If you know where you want to be in 5 years, that's great. Then you can figure out the bit in the middle, okay, which is like the steps from getting where you are today to where you want to be in 5 years. Like I said, if you're struggling with the 5 years, then maybe just start with the short, medium term. If you start thinking about this stuff as well, this is something you might do one day and then look at it again in 2 weeks or 2 months and scribble all over it again and start again. It might not be something you can do straight away, but have a go. Don't sweat it over it. This is another resource for you on the Irish Universities Association. They have a researcher's careers framework, which I'd encourage you to look at. That's just from there. This is the VTI stuff again. It's really interesting. Oops. If I just zoom in on there, you can see they have some stats around employability in the different disciplines. And then they have some sample job titles. Okay, so if you're, looking for inspiration, that might be useful. I know everybody's at different stages, so. And then, what if you are interested in the faculty route? Or what if you're not? I suppose this slide really should speak to both, because if you're a postdoc or a PhD or in a temporary research position, let's say, and thinking of, well, if you're thinking of staying, want to go down the faculty route, this all absolutely applies. But even if you're not, these are things, when I used to recruit in the private sector, it wasn't so much about what experience people brought, although that is important, of course, but it's also about how they performed in their role. So if you're a postdoc and you're going out to industry, let's say, you want to show that you've got a good story around your postdoc. So if your postdoc is about publishing, for example, or doing research or learning how to fill in a grant application, that's all really valuable to put on your CV, because then when you get an interview in the private sector, although they might not be interested in absolutely everything you published, what they are interested in knowing that you achieved what you set out to achieve in that role. So again, I can talk more about this if you want questions, but just to make that point. And then the importance of mentoring. This is just really shows that it can take a long time to do these. Where you have a 2-year postdoc, you need to start thinking about your next move pretty early on. And that's just some of the things we do in HR, or not in HR, in UCD and research careers to support our postdocs. Again, happy to talk about any of this. We have 4 competencies that we develop, and we have over 50 or 60 workshops a year. Interestingly, of our 300 postdocs, about 40% are women, but they take up 60% of our, let's call them workshop and event spaces. So I don't know how to interpret that or what that means, but I just thought it's interesting. Also, of our 300 postdocs, only about 22% are Irish. So it's a really diverse group. So this is my final slide, really, just to say, I suppose, in summary, do the self-reflection piece, as we talked about the values, etc. Set your mindset, set your path, and own it. Okay, check in with your own biases. As I said, we're all influential in our own roles. Practice telling your story. So we didn't speak too much about this, but this idea of having a brand or having a story, and practice saying that. So start with your friends and your peers. I talk about networking a lot. But, you know, to start networking, I think start with easy people, colleagues, friends, family, etc. Start articulating your story that you might tell to people outside your discipline, for example. Obviously speak up, you know, support, promote, etc. Women. Get a mentor, an advocate, a coach. If you can, get all three. I know advocacy maybe isn't it might be more of a private sector thing. But I know lots of the sort of women leadership events I've been at over the years that they all speak to having all three of these, maybe not all at the same time, but at some points throughout your career. In terms of any of these sort of where you're going to one other person on a one-to-one basis, I would say, and this is my opinion, have a plan, have something, go with something, okay? Go with an objective. It doesn't really matter what it is. The objective might be to figure out what I want to do next. That could be an objective, but go with something. It's people find it easier to help other people if the person arrives with a bit of a plan or a bit of an agenda. Don't forget to implement your plan, absorb the bumps in the road, support each other, etc. And it's okay to have uncertainty, imposter syndrome, to be, you know, all the challenges. It's okay. It's never too late. It happens to everybody. And look for the support, because it absolutely is there. And I know from working on some of the HR programs over the years, organizations do spend a lot of time and money thinking about how to support women and other EDI pieces in the agenda. And often, in fact, some of those programs are not well subscribed. So I would say, look for the support, research what support's available, figure out what you need, because only you know what you need, and then, you know, take advantage of what's on offer. Make sure you're not just going to everything all the time. You know, be focused, but you take advantage of it. Thanks, Ellen. Have I spoken for ages, or I'm so bad at timing myself?
That was fantastic, Tara. That's your last slide there, isn't it? I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks for an excellent talk. I think you've given an awful lot of food for thought, and there's some excellent resources there. And we'll be sharing the we'll be sharing the webinar on our website and social media, so people will be able to kind of replay back at this kind of particular link they're looking for. I think just really kind of, I suppose, like a key theme coming out of today as well too, it's about that self-reflection piece, and kind of like, you know, okay, we're all aware that, you know, if you do work in academia, you do tend to go from contract to contract, but not go through that blindly, to have, you know, to set yourself regular goals and kind of reflect on where you're at and going forward.
Yeah, and look, it's easy to say and sometimes not easy to do, but as I said, it doesn't have to be time consuming. And I think, I mean, I often think, and I know again this is easy to say, but like, don't be afraid just to have a chat with your friend. Do you know what I mean? Like, be open. Sometimes I like talking things through. For me, that works, just to actually say words. Some other people like writing or journaling or filling in like a career plan or whatever it is. So whatever works for you. And some people like going for a walk or whatever. So it's not supposed, I don't want it to be like another thing you have to do, but just lift your head up once in a while and have a look around. And make sure you're not just busy working without sort of being smart about it.
And to remember, like, it's not all, you know, there's no one set model. It's not one size fits all for every, you know.
No, and everybody is unique. Now, having said that, I do see a lot of common themes with my postdoc cohort. So people are more similar than they may realize as well.
And can I ask you, from your experience kind of the past year or so working with early career researchers in UCD, what kind of impact has COVID had on researchers' careers? And now that kind of we're emerging from COVID, what should, you know, early career researchers, I suppose both postdocs and maybe PhDs kind of later on in their PhD, what should they be jumping on now, kind of to take advantage of, and kind of to really kind of, I suppose, maybe kind of ramp up their careers after the kind of the past 2 years?
Yeah, I think probably like a lot of sections of society, COVID has had a devastating impact on some of the postdocs. You know, to a point of really they're not being able to do their research, especially, you know, in the first year maybe, before we all kind of picked ourselves up. But yeah, not being able to do their research, therefore not being able to publish, therefore, you know, really struggling to have something to show for their work, their time. And then given the fact they may only have been given a 2-year contract. Now, we did do COVID extensions in UCD, but even so, yeah. And then I know other people where they were managed to just somehow get on with it and work away, and loved working at home and loved the lack of interference from the office chit chat and all that. So it really suited them. So both extremes. Yeah, I don't really know the answer to your second question. It's hard, isn't it, at the moment, when you even listen to the news, to know what are we all doing, what are any of us doing? So yeah. I think all we can do is just do what we're here to do, and, you know, use our privilege, our education and our experience the best of our ability. Don't be afraid to ask. Like, you know, I know you can be unlucky in some parts of in some organizations. You can get unlucky with who you're working for or whatever, but generally, you know, have faith that people are happy to help. Senior people are happy to give back. Senior people get a lot of like, what's the word, like joy, I suppose, or, you know, from helping, giving a helping hand to people beginning of middle of their careers. So don't be afraid to ask for help, but I would advise to ask for specific help, you know, not just go and have a moan or, you know, a coffee. Just, you know, think of a little agenda in your head. Think of the questions you want to ask. What is the most useful thing that I can ask this person? So trying
to be strategic about it.
Yeah, a little bit proactive, or just active, I suppose, as opposed to passive. Yeah.
And I suppose as well too, what you say though, I mean, obviously, you know, unfortunately, we're coming out of the COVID pandemic, but obviously with world events, you know, it's not the most positive of times, but I think there is a lot to look forward to in 2022, particularly maybe someone, you know, coming out of a PhD or a postdoc contract. I do think, you know, the employment market is in a healthy place at the moment. Yeah. And I haven't got any data to back this up, but I do see what we spoke about earlier about people coming in and out of academia, maybe a little bit more. So that'll be interesting to see if that trend continues. Yeah, absolutely. It's really vibrant, and like, have a plan, but, you know, you can change your plan as well, right? You can have plan A and plan B. That's okay too. But I suppose to avoid that kind of drifting that we spoke about. So yeah, an active plan, let's say. Yeah, that's great. Okay, if we've no other questions for Tara, then just want to thanks Tara again for an excellent talk, and then we'll move on now to announce our Young Female Researcher Bursary. This award is generally sponsored by our corporate partner, It's for Women, and this has been an initiative we've been running. This is our 3rd year into this initiative, and the bursary is a €1,000 career award for an early stage female researcher working in vision research in Ireland. And we asked researchers to explain their research in a short video and to promote it on social media, and we got some fantastic entries. And I'm delighted to announce that the winner of the bursary this year, it goes to a student in Trinity in the Jane Farrar lab, and it's Iris Post. And I think my colleague Claire is going to play Iris's video.
My name is Iris, and I'm a PhD student in the Farrar lab at Trinity College. During my PhD project, I'm trying to find a treatment for Stargardt disease. In this video, I will explain how I'm driving the cure. This is a picture of the eye, and at the back of the eye we can find the retina. If we zoom in, it becomes clear that it's made up with all kinds of different cells that work together to translate light into vision. Normally, retinal pigment epithelial cells support the photoreceptors. So in Stargardt disease, a gene called ABCA4 doesn't work properly, and it causes accumulation of a pigment called lipofuscin. This causes all kinds of damage, and then the cells die and vision loss occurs. So we need something to keep these cells alive. I'm creating a gene therapy that brings some extra energy to retinal cells. These cells are then more resilient to damage, so they will stay alive. And in this way, I'm driving the cure for Stargardt disease.
So congratulations again to Iris, a very deserving winner, and it was a fantastic entry. And thanks again to all our contestants. It was a very competitive this year. And I could also reiterate our thanks to our corporate partner, It's For Women.ie, for sponsoring the bursary and supporting the Fighting Blindness charity. And now finally to wrap up the event, if on behalf of the team here at Fighting Blindness, if I can thanks so much to our speakers, Annalisa and Tara, for joining us today. And I hope everyone found the session to be useful and practical. And maybe for any of your colleagues who weren't unable to attend today, as I said, we'll be sharing the webinar on our social media and our website. So thanks again to everyone for attending today, and happy International Women's Day. Thanks so much.